Okay, so now let's talk about how to cite an image on the internet. So let's review the basic format. You're going to start with the author's name. Next, you're going to have the date of publication in parentheses, and then the title of the photograph in italics with digital image right after it in brackets. And that is to help the person looking at your resource to distinguish whether it's a digital image or map or a video recording, just so they're clear what the format is. Next, you're going to have the title of the website, and then last, you're going to have the URL. Let's look at an example. The first thing I wanted to point out is a common mistake that I see. I see a lot of people cite Google or Google Images as the source. Keep in mind that Google is a search engine. It's the means through which we can find an image, but it's not the entity that made it or that created it. I can kind of see how that's a little confusing, but keep in mind that you want to cite the source. So let's go to the source for this image. And here is the image I had in mind. You may remember this image. It went viral a couple months ago. This is the comically small digger trying to dig this ship out of the Suez Canal, which just happened a couple months ago. So let's say this is the image that we want to cite. The first thing that we need is the author. And don't confuse the author of the article with the author of the image, or the photographer, or the creator. In this case, when I look at the caption underneath, I see that Suez Canal Authority is listed as the author. So I'm going to actually use Suez Canal Authority, not Scott Newman as the author. The next thing I need is the date of publication, and it doesn't actually give me a date for the photo here, and I don't really see anything about taking the picture. So in this case, I'm going to make an assumption, and I am going to use the date of the article, March 25th, 2021, because that's just the best information that I have. The title of the photograph, again, try not to confuse the title of the article. It might take weeks to free ship stuck in Suez Canal, salvage company says, with the title of the photo. And in most cases, I would use the caption underneath as the title of the photo. You can sometimes create your own description. I'll show you an example of that a little bit later. So next you need the title of the website. That's going to be NPR. And again, this gets a little confusing. There's a lot of information up here. There's WNYC Radio. There's this campaign, 50, Hear Every Voice. But when I look at the URL, I see that NPR is in the URL. It's part of the address. So it's clear to me that NPR, National Public Radio, is the website. And then last but not least, you're going to want to copy and paste this URL into your project. Okay, so let's put all that information together. So just to review, this is the basic format. And then here is the final citation. So we've got Suez Canal Authority, 2021, March 25th, in parentheses. And then we've got that caption underneath the photo. Heavy equipment is used to try to dig out the keel of the Ever Given. Remember, in brackets, we want digital image so that it's very clear what we're talking about is the image itself and not the article. Then we have NPR, the name of the site. And then last but not least, we have the URL, which is copied and pasted there. And then if you want an example of what the in-text citation would look like, you would have the author, Suez Canal Authority, comma, the year, no page number. So next I wanted to talk about how to cite another kind of image, a meme, or an image from social media, however way you want to define it. So here is a meme of the image that we just saw. We've got the ship is me staying up until 2 a.m. mindlessly looking at the internet. And then we've got the tiny digger, which is coffee. So this is going to be somewhat similar to how we cited the NPR image. So the first information that we need is going to be the author. APA actually says it's fine in this instance for Twitter to just use the username, which is yo-yo-ha. The date of publication, that is actually really easy because it's written right here, March 26th, 2021. The next thing we need is the title of the photograph. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. There isn't really an official caption on this. A lot of times people will use the status text. In this case, I'm going to use I made a meme, look at me go, exactly as it's printed here without changing the capitalization or adding any grammar of my own. I'm just going to use that. I think this is helpful because A, if you're searching for this image, this is going to bring you right to this status update, right? So even though this is not very descriptive, it's going to help someone who's trying to find this image when they're looking at your work. So after that, you're going to have the title of the website. That's going to be Twitter. And then you're going to copy and paste this URL. That brings you to this status. Okay, so let's see how all that information fits together. So here's the original format. And then here's the example. So we have yo-yo-ha, the username, we have the date of the status update, and then we have the text of the tweet that accompanies the image with digital image in brackets to describe what it is, the name of the site, Twitter, And then this is how you would do the in-text example. You would have the username and the year. And then I just wanted to show you guys an alternate way to cite this image. So as I said, I personally think it's helpful to have the text of the tweet because I think it makes it easy to find the image. But you may think I would rather describe the image. So this is another way you could do it. You could basically make up your own text, however you want to describe it. So another way to do it would be to say this is a meme of the Ever Given ship stuck in the Suez Canal. Maybe that provides a little bit more context for someone looking at your sources. But you have to make it very clear that you provided those words and not the author. So that's why you're going to put it in brackets. And that's an alternate way that you can cite this meme. So next we're going to talk about how to cite an image in a museum. So let's say that you're walking through a museum, such as the Met, and you are totally inspired by a physical painting. There are two places that you can go for citation information. One is the museum card underneath or next to the painting. The other would be the museum website if they put up information about their individual items. So for this painting, the museum website actually makes it really easy to cite everything because all the information is here. So the artist, you can just put Van Gogh, V, the date of the work, the title of the work, followed by the medium in brackets. They do say that it's oil on canvas, so you can use that, but usually it's sufficient just to use the word painting also. So you want the name of the museum. That doesn't appear here. We know the Met is in New York, but if you found a painting online and you're not sure where the museum is, the museum information is usually found in the footer or sometimes on the About page. So we know it's New York, United States, and then we're just going to copy and paste the URL of the specific piece if possible. All right, so when we put that information together, here is the basic format. And then here is our example. And then if you need an in-text citation example, you would just use the artist's last name and then the year of publication, the year they made the piece of art.